So I can't thank you enough for being on the show. And we already had a little laugh because I struggled with your name being up in North Dakota. You can already probably hear my accent, but why don't you pronounce your own name? And we're probably going to have to spell it for people so they can find you at the end of the show. But why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Abiel Ballesteros. I've been raised here in Miami. Originally born in Cuba. Been in the real estate game for the past 15 years. Got into the business at 25 years old, just doing real estate appraisals. That led to investing, real estate, traditional style real estate, buying and flipping single family and now to syndicating apartment buildings.
Sure. So, we had kind of a little chat before this, and I do think that because of the current environment and the situation, you have some very practical and good experience with, the crash at '07. You kind of went through that. Frankly, we're going to have to kind of face facts that we're probably going to see a little bit of issues around the properties right now. You mentioned having to deal with squatters and stuff in your neck of the woods here now during the coronavirus and everything that's going on. So I hate to just jump into it, but why don't we start there? Let's talk a little bit about your experiences around these environments and how you're handling it right now.
Well, the way I'm handling these experiences, you just have to be on it, on your game 10 times more than you were before. You can't take it lightly what's going on right now, and especially if you have vacant properties or you have properties in the middle of a rehab. I think now the conditions of the market, you're going to experience a lot of theft. You're going to experience squatters. Your properties are going to be very vulnerable. People are going through it,
Mm-hmm.
Financially. Some people need homes. The panic, it's real.
Right.
If you were around for the last real estate cycle that you mentioned, '07, '08, this has the potential to make that look like elementary school.
Right.
So you can't take this lightly. How bad it's going to go, no one knows. But I do take it very serious. I mean, we're driving by our properties as much as we can. I know it's tough because of this whole coronavirus, but you keep your distance. You try not to, I know there's habits that people have, the handshaking and all that. You try to stay safe with all that. But my biggest fear is, getting squatters. There's no evictions for the next couple months. You get a squatter on one of your properties, you're going to be in trouble for a while. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the rules, depending on the country, have different rules for squatters than others. What are some of the things that you've been doing in trying to prevent this from squatters coming in or theft in general? You even had a story where you had one property with all the windows stolen.
Yeah. So, I purchased a portfolio of properties here in Miami. It was a 35 duplex portfolio. The rehabs were going great. We were changing all the windows to impact. It was 20 properties that were vacant. We were converting them all to impact windows. They were old jalousie windows. And Miami, we got hit with a hurricane. Hurricane hit, caused a lot of damage. I went out to my properties the next day, and properties were okay. There was some hurricane damage, but nothing crazy. 2 days passed by. Everyone is handling their emergencies, so it's hard to get workers to jump back on your projects because they got their own issues to deal with. Mm-hmm. I go back to my properties, and my impact windows are stolen from the frame.
Wow.
So, that is a prime example why it's, in my opinion, you got to put alarm systems in all your properties. I don't care what neighborhood you think you're in, how safe it is. These jobs sometimes could be inside jobs. It sucks to say it could be some of your own contractor workers that, it could be a lot of factors. But yeah, it's definitely a bad experience, but it's something that you learn from. And I always tell everyone, man, put alarms. If you could do, Simply Safe, ADT, whatever alarm system. I'm not going to sell a product, but me personally, I just love Simply Safe. There's no contracts. It's very easy to install. You don't got to spend a ton of money. Just a good motion detector in the living room. captures anything that happens.
Sure.
And that's what we're doing now with our vacant properties.
Yeah. In fact, we actually went as far as getting some ring cameras with floodlights for the front steps. So and then we just, from project to project, we just moved the ring camera from one place to the next with a hotspot.
Never tried that one. That's
and
pretty
then
cool.
you can buy those little cameras now. I think they're Wise or Waze or something. They're like $20 a
Yeah,
camera now.
Yeah,
They
it's
trigger on with some motion, and I mean,
yeah, it's a wrap. See, I didn't know about those.
yeah, you can pick them up at Home Depot everywhere now. They're just little, they're just tiny 2-inch by 2-inch cameras. You can kind of stick anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. What do you do when you don't have electricity in a property like that? There's no connection.
We haven't had that problem. We typically have electricity, so I guess I can't speak to that. But if that was the case, I probably would. You're talking to a nerd here now, because my day job, I'm in IT, so I would get an uninterrupted power supply.
Okay.
So if there is a power outage, the power supply would kick on and power those devices.
Yeah, we use motorcycle batteries.
Hey, that'll work. That'd work
Yeah,
too.
my property managers will go by, like if we're waiting to connect, if we buy a property that's been stripped from electricity,
Sure.
I have my property. It lasts like 4 or 5 days. They'll pass by, recharge the batteries, and keep trucking. So that's our strategy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It works.
So you've been going to buy your properties every day, just doing drive-bys, just to check them and making sure everything's okay. If you find a squatter, I'm guessing that the police have other things to deal with right now.
Yeah.
How have you been handling like those interactions?
I haven't had a specific situation where I've had an actual squatter. In the past, I've had, and it's a problem. You're gonna, if once they're fully moved in, it's gonna take you a month and a half or 2 months to get them out. Those are experiences that we've already learned, and we prevent them as much as possible. But when are you running a single family portfolio? It's a problem. We have a single family portfolio in Jacksonville. It's up to 60 properties. And we're constantly just on top of that. Sometimes you have tenants just leave without telling you. Somebody else will come and move in a couple of days later. So it's you got to have an active property manager that's on top of their game. I can't express how much a property manager is important.
Right. Do you don't manage any of your properties yourself? You have a property manager?
I used to, not anymore. I used to. I did for a couple of years, and I found my value to be more on moving the rehabs, moving the projects, and raising capital. That's what I like to do. Managing properties, it's like a complaint department, man, all day. It's not for everyone.
Right.
You got to have a lot of patience. You can't lose it. You got to be very patient with these tenants. And that wasn't my specialty. I admit it, I wasn't that good at it. So
sure.
Yeah.
So that's always a great question to ask. And since you manage them yourself, what was the process that you went through to pick your current property manager? And what are some of those pitfalls? Like, we hear time and time again that a property manager can either make or break a property. I mean, when it comes to cash flowing, what was the process, and what kind of questions did you ask?
Referrals are always going to be the best way to get a good property manager. Your network, your friends, your colleagues in the business. I will always go down that route and get a feedback from them. If they've been with one of your colleagues and friends for a while managing the properties, it should be good. I'm a big fan of Appfolio. They got to be knowledgeable in managing through the Appfolio.
Sure.
And if they're not, I got to make sure that they're trained by it immediately. Another thing is their personality. From managing myself, it takes a special breed. People have, they can't have a bad temper. They got to be able to deal, and they got to actually care for these tenants' needs. It's a personality thing. If they don't care, then you're going to see it out. You're going to see it coming out in your vacancies. Also, someone is knowledgeable and knows what repairs are needed. Something that, if you try to take your repairs in-house instead of outsourcing it, because that will kill your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, also property managers are not trying to, get kickbacks from their handymans or the other companies. That's a common problem. Sometimes it's very hard to prove, but it happens a lot in the business where property managers will like to stick to one specific company because they're getting kickbacks on the repairs back.
Sure.
It's hard to prove, but it happens.
So have you instructed your property manager, like any kind of special notes or letters to the current residents regarding COVID-19 and the coronavirus, like some things to encourage them to pay their rent? And we're going to experience some issues here if this drags on too much. What kind of communications have you instructed?
What we did is we do a lot of Section 8, a lot of government housing, a lot of programs with the government. Most of our portfolio is secure with that type of rent, but it's not 100%. On the tenants that are paying, there's a few that we know are already jobless. We'll try to work with them. We're going to let them know that the rents are still due. We'll try to understand the situation and play it by ear, because it's not, if we start giving them all the different options that they will have, that they might just go to the last option just from day one. So we just want to educate them that, we understand that the government is providing help, but that the rent is still going to be due.
Right. Yeah, that's just been kind of a touchy subject, because unfortunately there's going to be a group of people, the government passed the stimulus package here today. It's going to the president for signature. When that money finally hits people's pockets, there's going to be a part of the population, unfortunately, that's going to be making different decisions on how to use that money.
Correct. Yeah.
So I've been struggling with that concept of like what kind of communication should be sent out and how to deliver it.
It's going to be interesting. We're not too far away from finding out what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's around the corner, man. Yeah. It's I'm in the low income sector. I'm in the C sector. I don't own any assets or A's, or we do have one B portfolio, but most of our properties are in the C sector. So they're that working class. Our average rents are $1,100 to $1,300 a month. Our lowest are $700 a month. So it's going to be interesting how this is going to work itself out. We definitely going to try to work with our tenants. If they can't pay the full amount, we'll try to get it in portions. Anything that they can would help us. I think having that open communication with them and that friendly environment, and we also want them to understand that we're going through it too. Some tenants are understanding, some just don't care, just in it for themselves. So hopefully we'll be able to get past that. But we are going to expect some tenants.
Sure. Well, let's change the direction of this conversation a little bit, because the email that I received says you have quite some stories that you could possibly share. So what are some of the stories that you can share from your 15 years of experience?
One very important story is when you're syndicating deals and you're buying apartment buildings, just sellers not being honest on their expenses, and on the tenants that are actually paying, just scenarios like that. When you're buying these apartment buildings, there's just a lot of sellers are not going to disclose a lot of things. You have to do your homework. You have to be very thorough on your inspections. Also, you have to put some addendums in there, man, to protect yourself. One of my experiences was not certifying the rents that they were disclosing to us, not adding those rents, not certifying, because they provide estoppels, but sometimes when you're buying 100, 200 units, not everyone gets to sign those estoppels. It's just hard for them. Just making them liable that the information that they're providing is certified and signed, and just holding them accountable on that, because you're going to have some stories where you buy a building and 20%, they sold you on a 95% occupied, but 20% were delinquent, so those are experiences that I've had with buying buildings, apartments.
Sure.
Just very dishonest. You got to do your homework.
So how long have you been doing the syndication?
It's been 5 years now.
Sure. And how many properties have you purchased in that
Uh,
fashion?
in the last 5 years, I would say right now we're holding on to about 260 doors throughout Florida, but we bought and sold a few buildings um, in the past 5 years. We recently just sold 2 weeks ago 42 units, and also we just made an acquisition of 41 units 2 weeks ago,
Sure.
which was scary because we were buying it just in the middle of the storm.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
we're confident with the purchase we made. It was a good deal.
Sure. So some of the things that you do then, do you take these properties, these multifamilies, turn them around and then sell them at a
You know, my perfect partnership would be not to sell them ever.
Mhm.
But the real world is investors. There's all types of different investors. Lining up with the right one, I think, is the challenge. Because you have investors that there's the flippers. They're the ones that just want to hold on for a very short period of time, and then
Right.
they're the ones that are okay with the 5 and 10 year holds. The 5 and 10 year holds are hard to find. I don't know how your experiences have been to find those, but
Mhm.
uh, folks like to invest, and a lot of them want to see the money quick.
Sure.
It's a
Sure.
challenge. It's a challenge to find, investors to line up with you on a long-term hold.
Well, you got to go through an interviewing process with them too, right? What steps have you taken to find those right partners?
Um, I like the fact, I like the best relationships that I currently have with investors. They already come from a passive income experience. They've already owned their multi-families in the past. They're older gentlemen. They're above 60 years old. They understand the concept of buying and holding. They have the patience to see it evolve after a couple of years to get that true value out of the property.
Sure.
Uh, I've found that the younger investors are just eager to make that quick money.
Mm,
So I don't know if there's an actual statistic to that, but the young 30-year-olds, the young 20-year-olds that have a little bit of money, they just want to get that money back quick and see turnarounds quick. It's
sure.
interesting to see that.
Sure. Well, tell me like some of your better deals. Like give us an example. I know you say a lot of your portfolio is C class down in Florida. Um, what kind of numbers or what kind of returns do you typically see in that market?
Uh, in the last couple of years, the returns have been great. I mean, we've all experienced a boom. Um, there's my best deals have been portfolios that you can acquire and sell separately.
Hmm.
Uh, anything that I bought that was a portfolio of like 20 properties, or like the one I mentioned, those 35 duplexes that I was able to acquire them together and sell them separately. Those deals did just very well for me. Uh,
Sure. Sure.
Overall, anything that I've been able to buy and just divide separately and sell them separately have been great. I always have the radar open for something like that, where you could sell it, buy a bunch of duplexes and sell them individually to FHA buyers or that first-time home buyer or that first-time home
Mhm.
investor. They're just paying top dollars for it.
Sure.
They're borrowing very cheap, very little money down, so the returns for them, make sense. Uh, those end buyers are great. They pay top dollars.
Sure. Well, how do you find these opportunities then? I mean, this sounds like a pretty good strategy that you got going on here.
I'm a cold caller, man.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I like to just make cold calls. Get that we have a call center out of the country. We pull our leads, and we have our criteria. We look for certain signs, delinquent taxes, equity, and we make phone calls.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
I've
what.
I've heard people using this strategy more and more. Stepping away a little bit of the yellow letters and bandit signs, and it seems like the cold calling is becoming more and more popular.
I think it's a personality. I think it has to fit your personality. I do have colleagues of mine that are very successful with the mailouts. but they're okay with waiting for that phone call to come in.
Mm-hmm.
For me, my personality is I need to make the call out, very hyper, so I need to make that call. It's just that itch, so that it fits my style more. But I do know that there's other success in other routes.
Sure. So when you do these cold calls, what do you do you have a script or something that they leverage?
We do have a script. I particularly like callers in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
We have a small group. It's not like a big mega call center, but we do use a small group in the Philippines, and they basically just warm up the lead for us.
Sure.
Once it's warm, then it comes either to me or to one of my partners, and then we talk to them one on one.
Sure. Sure. So how do they warm them up for you? Like what questions do they ask?
They basically just ask them up front that we're investors buying properties in the area, and we could make a quick decision, and we're not there to waste their time. It's a very short script. You could kind of sense the urgency. We're calling distress. Most of the time, it's distress sellers.
Sure.
If they haven't paid their taxes in 3 years, they're having some type of issue. So usually that's our first target. So usually we'll get a warm. If once it clicks, we'll get a warm lead, and then I'll take over and just having a conversation with them. It's not really like a salesman type of thing. It's just like having a conversation, feeling them out. What are their problems? What are their issues? Most of the time, our best deals come from people who they need to sell. They're just going through it financially, and they just want to get out of it. And that call just came and just saved them right now. So that's usually what we're trying to look for.
Okay. So you basically do a skip trace and have your team start calling. And what type of the response rate on a yellow letter now, where you might see 1%? Are you seeing a better return on that?
It's about we're connecting. I think the last time I ran the percentage was about 12%. 12% pickup. Yeah, 12%.
Yeah. So yeah, it is doing better.
8 to 12%, correct.
Sure.
Yeah.
So do you, besides the phone calling, do you hit them with any other advertising or marketing then?
No.
Just that.
Just that. A lot of our deals also come from relationship with realtors,
Sure.
investors. I buy from wholesalers. It's tough. I try not to because of their terms of their contracts, but we've had some good deals off wholesalers.
Okay. So circling back around here, it looks like we're starting to run out of time a little bit, but if somebody is getting ready, looking at the current environment, you've been through the down of 2007. We might have this whole coronavirus thing. We might see it again in some capacity. What suggestions or what would you recommend them shoring up and getting ready for that possibility?
My advice to young and experienced investors: get in front of your investors, communicate with them, talk to them, let them know that, stay in front of them, because I guarantee you other investors are getting in front of them. There's going to be a lot of opportunities coming up. It's sad to say, but it's just the reality of it. When they're going to come up, we don't know that. But unfortunately, there is going to be a lot of folks losing their properties. This unemployment thing it's scary. So, there's just going to be properties going left and right. Getting in front of your investors and just having them there ready for you to be able to reach out to them when you got a deal in the pipeline coming. Also, is going to be big opportunities in buying notes. I think that'll be the first round. There was a big wave of private lenders lending money, 8, 10s, and 12%. I think those are going to be the first ones to go. A lot of private lenders are going to lose their butts right now. I think if you have relationships or if you know any private lenders that had a pool of loans, I will call them up, see if they'll sell their notes, see if they'll sell their debt. It could be from funds to, friends and family who have private loans out there. I think that's where the first opportunity is going to come for deals.
Sure. Well, I can't thank you enough. This was a great conversation. Was there anything that um, you wanted to cover that, or a question you wished I would have asked?
No, no, we're good. We're good. I'm glad that we had this conversation.
So before we sign off, always want to give people the opportunity. How do they find you or get a hold of you if they have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, they can reach me at my email. It's Abiel, Abiel, at UnitedDreamRE.com. You can shoot me an email there, and we can link up if they have any questions.
Well, thanks again. It was great to chat with you and feed off of your experience a little bit. And I hope we can do it again sometime.
Thank you. All right, good night. Bye-bye.